What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to Not Quite Mint. Today we are going to go through our event show, so we're going to do a little bit different. So we're reviewing X of Swords or 10 of Swords, whichever way you want to look at it, but we're doing it as a event. So we're just going to do just the X of Swords stuff. So shall we get into it, Rich?
Yeah.
And Ben.
Oh yeah, we've got a little visitor as well, but yeah, let's get into it.
Don't forget about me.
Yes, welcome back, guys. So thanks ever so much for coming along. Obviously, this is our special event show. We've sort of pretty much basically came to the decision that we wanted to do for these big events, because we always end up reviewing them in our normal review show. But there's so much to talk about with these events and all the tie-ins and spin-offs. So we're going to start doing like a standalone review show, introduce some of our friends from the community, such as our Ben down here, Ben from Straight Out Crampton. And just
beautiful Ben.
If you do want to obviously follow along with the series and watch our other videos, obviously hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out, and also obviously smash the like button. But as we have the guests, obviously go and subscribe to their channels as well.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to their channels. Yeah. And if you're not following us on Instagram or Twitter and Facebook, then you should be, because we are very active on it. And also Ben is on Instagram as well, and he's very active. So it's worth going over there and following both of us.
It's about time I'm active in some walk of my life, eh?
Love it. So shall we get into it then, lads? Shall we have a chat about this X of Swords thing?
Yes.
Shall we start with, before we actually get into because there's only been 2 chapters so far. So this is episode 1 of this event review, and there's only been 2 chapters. So we've only had X of Swords creation, and we've had X Factor issue 4. But before we talk about the actual books themselves, what did you guys want to get from X of Swords? Is there anything like you were looking forward to, or from the hype that you've read about? Is there anything you were hoping that they definitely would do, or don't want them to do with the characters, or what they're going forward?
You can go first, Ben. You go first, because like you know more about X-Men, so you go first, mate.
That's very polite, sir. I didn't want it to happen.
No.
I didn't want it to happen. I still don't want it to happen. I'm annoyed it's happening. I loved House of X. Powers of X, I didn't really enjoy so much. And it turns out it didn't really mean anything, or hasn't really influenced anything. But for me, this whole concept of, mutants finally finding a proper asylum, and the negotiations with other nations and dispersing this miracle drug across the world, and then what the Marauders are doing, and the Five and the creation of life and things like that. There is so much interesting stuff there within House of X, and I just feel like they should have let that simmer longer than what they have. I feel like, we've only really brushed the surface on that, and already there's an event that doesn't really necessarily kind of tie into the themes of like House of X and what they're doing there. It feels like a completely different genre, to be honest. Yeah, I'm out. I'm going to log off.
See ya.
But it's good to have that, it's good to have that subjective review, because I know you and Tom are like massive X-Men fans. Now I love X-Men. I like reading it, but I haven't got the in-depth like reading knowledge of X-Men. So I've read like Spider-Man and like bits of Superman. When I did, I was like Walking Dead and Hellboy and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of missed a lot of like the modern day kind of X-Men type of thing. So for me, this is almost like a massive jumping in point. I've kept on saying numerous times that I haven't yet read House of X Powers of 10, and I've got all the issues gathering dust upstairs in my attic. Do you know what I mean? So I need to read those, I feel, to sort of get into this. But this was an interesting review show for me to have people like, you know, Tom and yourself obviously bring and sort of have that world sort of explained. But yeah, you know, that's what I was hoping for. I think I've alluded to the fact though that again, I've been a bit. I totally agree with you actually, Ben. That point that you've just made, it only feels like 5 minutes ago when this Hickman sort of X-Men has sort of like hit ground, and then all of a sudden the feel of this event is very like almost feels very final, and it's very like epic, and do you know what I mean? But so yeah, I sort of I have picked up on that this does feel like almost like there's so much more that they could be doing with the other stuff. Why are they doing this so soon? But I'm interested to find out why.
Yeah, I mean, I would be exactly the same. I'm enjoying it, but I was massively on the fence because I totally agree with the fact that I think Dawn of X needed a little bit longer to kind of mature and become something more and have more characters. What I didn't like about this from the get-go, right from when I read about it, is like the idea of 10 swords and them all going out and getting swords. Like, what has swords got to do with the X-Men in any way, shape, or form apart from magic? I don't understand where these swords have come from, what they're about. I mean, they've been alluded to in a few of the other issues, like the Cerebro sword is alluded to in Cable, I think. I mean, I don't understand where they've come from. I mean, it's not an X-Men thing I've come across before, apart from the one katana that Wolverine has that can slice. Yeah, it can slice through adamantium. That happened quite a few years back, but I was excited to read it just because I love X-Men and I was want to see where it goes. So, shall we discuss the first issue, the first chapter?
God, do we have to?
Yeah.
Who invited him?
Yeah. So, chapter 1 we see is X-Men X of Swords creation. I didn't dislike it. I thought the betrayal part of it was good, but I could see it coming a mile off about 6 or 7 issues back. Didn't really like what they did with Apocalypse. I thought that I liked it, but at the same time, it was a bit. They could have waited a little bit longer to do what they did with Apocalypse in this, in my opinion. I didn't understand some of it, and I think if you don't have some kind of knowledge on X-Men, there's loads of this that's going to be missed. And I feel like I like Jonathan Hickman's writing style. I like that he puts a lot of little bits in, 100 issues beforehand that then come to fruition, 100 issues down the line. I like that, but I think he's giving people a really heavy book here to try and like whirl the old cogs around. And if you haven't read some of the other stuff, a lot of it's going to go under the radar. But I did enjoy the art. I thought the art was great.
You're as diplomatic as Xavier.
Who, me?
I think this is it. We'll have to rewind. We should insert like parts of when we actually reviewed this issue.
Yeah.
Well, it was last week, though, wasn't it? So
yeah,
wasn't it Dino?
Dino, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how obviously you felt. I think one of the biggest parts with this was what happened with Apocalypse. So obviously I didn't trust the High Evolutionary as far as I could throw him. I had that kind of feeling with him from the start that
I don't trust anyone who's that white.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Vanilla Ice. Don't trust him.
Don't trust Vanilla Ice. But yeah, so I was like, there was always something I was waiting for that to happen, and then the whole, oh, grandfather, how are you doing? Blah blah blah. That was like, hold on, what's going on here? So, like, I was anticipating that something wasn't quite right there, if that makes sense. But to obviously see that the whole like, oh, these are his children, and then next thing you know, he's obviously being run through with a massive blade. It was like I wasn't quite expecting it to be that brutal, if that makes sense. So
because effectively kind of like a big fall from grace, if you like. Apocalypse. He gives it the big one, and then he's just been stabbed by his grandson, as it were. Like, I'm pretty sure we can do spoilers in this video because it's an event show.
Oh, yeah,
read them.
with this one. It's,
but I think that for me, that was one of my favorite panels. But other than that, the story just didn't quite. Anyway, sorry, you were talking. My bad.
No, well, I was going to say, what my question was off the back of the Apocalypse thing was that for me, whenever I've seen Apocalypse in the X-Men, he's always been like the big bad character. So to see him kind of almost like vulnerable and not all powerful in that respect, I found that quite surprising. So I don't know if that upset you guys or surprised you or what.
I personally quite like the twist that certain characters are going through whilst being on Krakoa. You know, I think I love seeing Apocalypse in a suit.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. You know, I think that this kind of unity that mutants are obviously going through at the moment, for now anyway, it won't last long. It's like my family and
mine.
I'm quite enjoying the way that it is softening certain characters, mainly villains, obviously. So
do you find that they're kind of doing the softening of the villains, but the hardening of the kind of mimpy, wimpy people, and they're kind of coming in the middle? Like, I feel like the X-Men's morals have kind of gone, out you go, see you later. They're just a bit more guilty, yeah. See you.
Yeah, I mean, I like a twist of a character. I do. I'm not one of these fanboys that like gets very precious. Like, you can't do that with him, you know, because I quite enjoy something to be freshened up. But the thing for me with Apocalypse, with this event, is that it's almost like they've now gone back on that. It's like, oh no, actually, we're going to put him back in armor and, you know, put lightning behind him in every panel and stuff like that, you know, to try and kind of give him that epicness again. And I actually kind of would quite like to see, you know, a more vulnerable Apocalypse, because what could be interesting as well is you've got that Kid Apocalypse from Wolverine and the X-Men, one of my favorite comic books of all time.
I need to read it.
Oh, mate, get on that. It's such a good run. Anyway, don't let me digress, because I really will for that. But Kid Apocalypse is a really interesting character as well. And it would be quite nice maybe if the characters sort of merged a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, for me, I was just completely lost. I was lost. And I, you know, thanks, Rich. Knowledge on X-Men, you know, I like to think that it's probably one of the things I'm more knowledgeable on. Which is completely useless, can I say, in normal life. But I just kind of felt lost. I didn't really. I think you could do all the research in the world and you still might not really know what's going on. And you know, all those filler pages that they've been doing throughout, you know, since kind of House of X and stuff. Like, I started to read those initially because they were fairly simple. It was like, oh, here's, you know, this symbol and it means this. But now it's like Hickman's doing like full, you know, pages of like 4 paragraphs. Like, you know, I don't want to read a dissertation in the middle of my comic to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
So can you help me understand it as well? Like, so have they time traveled? I'm so confused.
So my understanding is it's all on the same timeline. There's no time travel involved or whatever. But and this was the bit that kind of like got me thinking. It's the fact that there's obviously because on one of those little pages that you mentioned, there's obviously that diagram where you've got this like other world in the middle, which is where you've got your Citadel, which is where your Saturnine and all of her cronies are all chilling out.
How'd you say it?
What, Saturnine?
Is that how you say it? Because I've been reading it and going, oh fuck, I cannot read this name.
So she's calling her Saturday.
Saturday, that'll do, yeah.
So she's up there with all her cronies, obviously, just, you know, as this hub to all of these, what are the 9 realms. So in my head, it went like a bit bit like Thor and the realms of blah blah blah.
But where are those realms? Are they
exactly? Well, I was thinking that, and I was like, well, this is Marvel, and this is so are these completely other realms? And it got a bit. So I was going to ask you guys about that, but obviously you're as confused as me. So
I didn't understand that either.
So there's all these things, and obviously on those little filler pages, there's a lot of write-uppers about all of those different realms as well, isn't there? So there's you've got to keep that in your head, and there's all these regents, each of these realms who are obviously overseeing it, and you've got, is it Merlin in one and Rosa in another one, who are father and daughter, but they fell out, and one side of the realms are dark, and one side of the realms are light, and there's a lot to go in. And I was like, oh well, has this been mentioned before, or is all this new? But it obviously seems that there's a lot of it that's new, maybe.
Yeah, I can see where your confusion comes from with the time travel, though, Ben. Like, because in the prequel, which I think is issue 12 of X-Men, they talk that the High Summoner is talking to Apocalypse about what's happened and how it's gone to fruition, that his wife, his kids, and all this shit's gone on, and you kind of forget that Apocalypse is so old that that all this has happened previously before he ended up in our realm. But then I don't understand that, because hasn't he always been in our realm? I don't understand how he's got two different realms going on. It is a bit confusing on that. I really hope it all comes to fruition and Hickman just does something decent with it. But
I just hope it stops. And whatever realms are closed or destroyed or whatever, and they go, right, sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let's just get back to the story, shall we? Because for me, X-Men works. The best X-Men stories are when they're at their simplest, or when the team is not too kind of congested as well. It's those small character exchanges. It's those epic one-on-one fights, and it's Nightcrawler being chased through a street, by a horde of people with torches. It's that simple stuff. And I kind of often lose interest in it. Excuse me, happened a lot in the 90s, but when they just go too, big world with it, and it feels like they've definitely done that with this.
I would agree 100%. I think Hickman is kind of, if anything, he's believing his own hype, that he did such a good job with House of X and X of Power, that in this one I feel like he's trying to redo that, but on a higher, more advanced scale, which is just completely losing. I mean, I got lost halfway through. I did like it though. Hand on heart, I did like this comic, but it was hard to follow, and I still don't understand it.
I got angry because I felt dumb. I don't like comics to make me feel dumb.
Yeah.
And this made me feel dumb.
It's really weird, because I like like the books that I've spent most of the last sort of 5 years reading have been like your more classic kind of like fantasy novels, like Wheel of Time, and obviously going over like your Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So for me, this whole idea of like mystical realm, stuff like that, it's like, you know what I mean? But that's that for me. You like Lord of the Rings, Tom?
I've never read it.
But you've never read it. You like the
too many words.
Next time I'm at Comic Con and I see that little Frodo cosplayer, I now know who it is in those shoes.
Well, yeah, my wife's, everybody calls her Holly Hobbit, doesn't she?
They do, yeah. We bought her a pair of Hobbit feet quite a while back.
Yeah. But so for me, when I started reading this, for my kind of jumping in point almost, it kind of did feel quite familiar in that respect, that it felt quite mystical, and with a bit of familiarity with like the X-Men, and then you've got obviously this horrible army horde from Araco. So it's kind of the Four Horsemen. It's very classic kind of fantasy story, that you've got your kind of your goodies, you've got your baddies, and then you've got some kind of political situation where you're not too sure what side they're going to play with the Saturnine thing. So if that kind of simplifies it, it probably does, but that's how it felt to me. So I'm intrigued to see how it goes, but it's a shame that it isn't, as you guys seem to be saying, like a pure X-Men kind of story.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, what's the point in doing something very grand in scale, but then it's not, because it's not crossing over with other titles necessarily. So
well, no. And that,
that's
and
true. It's just the X-Men, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things that Tom was saying, obviously, if we move over to the second issue, obviously,
Chapter 2.
X Factor, like we hadn't really been, we'd obviously been reading this as a run into this X of Swords event, and because it's obviously relatively new since we've came out of lockdown, or the first lockdown, as we probably will get to know it, and we liked the first issue.
Hashtag repeat.
Yeah, second issue we weren't too sure. Third issue we were lost with the whole Mojo World thing. But I felt this was a better story. But
then it's completely separate. Like it doesn't involve the X Factor. So don't, like, they might as well just made another X of Swords comic.
Yeah, that was the bit that got me. Why didn't they? I know that they're using the X Factor characters, like you've got Rachel Summers and some of the others. So I understand that they're doing it for that reason. However, I agree with you, Ben. I think if you're going to do X Factor Chapter 2, call it X Factor, X of Swords issue 2. Call it X of Swords issue 2, not just bang it into X Factor issue 4, because it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. And because it is a direct continuation from X of Swords creation, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great continuation. I liked what happened in it. I thought it gave you a little bit more than the first chapter, so I liked it, and it is getting me more and more interested. But I totally agree. I think it should have just been X of Swords issue 2.
Yeah, and this one for me, it was one of those ones where it kind of it was that direct follow on, but it felt a lot more familiar in terms of like some of the running issues that we'd read previously, like the preludes, like you mentioned X-Men 12 and the previous X Factor issue and things like that. So it felt it didn't feel so high fantasy like creation did. So I'm actually thinking, because we've got, I think there was obviously the part 1, which was creation. I think there's part 12 or whatever it's called, Stasis, I think. And then there's a sort of a finale kind of like
destruction.
Issue. Well, yeah. So
excellent.
And then in between we've got all of these, sort of tie-in issues, which are just going to obviously run the story on. But it makes me wonder what's going to happen in X Factor 5 or 6 if that isn't an X of Swords book. Are we just going to be like, and moving swiftly on, let's go back to Mojo World and just do all that kind of stuff?
Because I'm pretty sure they were still on Mojo World at the end of the last issue.
Yeah, they were. That's what I didn't get. That was my one of my criticisms, is I didn't understand how they got to this point, because in creation he asks for volunteers and Rachel volunteers, and then I don't understand how she's, and Polaris as well, because she's on Mojo World.
Yeah,
and this is a prime example for me of why Marvel, in general, but especially the X-Men, need less titles. It's hard, because as an X-Men fan, I made a video about 5 of the most obscure X-Men, who have never featured in a film, who could. Because I love X-Men so much, I could literally have a roster of like 50. But in terms of storytelling, I really think that needs to be minimized. And because they're getting lost in their own continuity now, even just the X-Men, let alone, what's going on with the rest of the, the Marvel world. So, it's very frustrating. This issue as well, that issue features like an element that by itself could have just been an interesting story to explore, and you could have had a 4-part spin-off just by itself exploring this concept, and that is that the 5 cock up when bringing someone back. I loved the kind of character reactions to that, especially I love me some gold balls. Okay, I don't care if they've called him Egg now. He's gold. Yeah. He'll always be gold 100%. Balls to me. And I loved, his reaction to, freaking out a bit over it all. And then bringing Rockslide back as like a different version of Rockslide, or
Sandro.
You are.
Was he called Sandro or something like that? Is that they were calling it something? What's Sandro?
That's his original name, isn't it? Santino or something. He's Mexican.
Right. Yes, because when they started saying something about Sandro, I was like, "What? Who's Sandro?"
No, that's his civilian name, if you like.
Okay.
But I love that idea that they start bringing people back, but not as their selves, but as like the pure mutation, maybe, or something. That's kind of how I read into it, and I think that's such an interesting concept. That this utopia that they're creating on Krakoa kind of slowly falls apart. But sadly, it was embedded in all this nonsense, and I just don't know what's going on. It's horrible. It makes you feel powerless as a fan because I don't know what's going on. I can't even theorize like what's going to happen or get excited about things because I'm so lost that it's very stressful.
Yeah, I mean, with this one as well, it's that sort of like continuation of the fact that Apocalypse is injured and they can't quite get help to him at that point. So I don't know. Again, that like you were talking about, it's kind of cool to see Apocalypse being vulnerable in that respect because you don't normally see him like that. That was a surprise to me because I thought he's too big a character. He's on all of the covers of this X of Swords event that we've seen so far, pretty much. How can he be out of action so severely? Do you know what I mean? He's kind of like the pivotal character in many respects.
Yeah, I liked the relationship between him and Rickon as well. I thought that was Richter, that's it. I thought it was brilliant. I really like the idea that he's invested in this other character that he didn't think he was going to be invested in. He's basically used him to create the archway to go to the other world, but because he's so powerful, and I think he resonates with him that he's almost godlike. He's like, okay, I like this kid, and I like that. I like that he's like, don't save me, save him, which is something you don't get from Apocalypse because obviously he's all about survival of the fittest. I liked that little element of it, and I liked the Polaris thing. But I agree with you, Ben. I think when it came to the bringing Rockslide back and the fact that the five have naffed up a little bit, I thought that needed its own story, if you like. And I'd like to see where they explore that idea that, yes, they can bring people back, but if you die where we can't, essentially get your memories from, that's it. You're dead. You're gone. You're back to square one.
Here's an idea, right? They could have done, instead of, 12 of, daggers or whatever the hell this is, they could have done a whole, event where basically the five have started to bring people back as like pure mutant manifestations, and we kind of get like an army of like mutants that are now, like Rockslide, just kind of abstract rocks, and I don't know, Toad comes back literally as this like weird kind of like toad creature. Everyone kind of comes back in a very monstrous way, and we could have had a whole event like that where they have to defend Krakoa or something.
That's quite a cool idea.
But what am I? I'm just a fan. I don't know anything.
Yeah, true. You don't.
Yeah, and we haven't even spoke about the whole thing that there's all this like symbology to do with tarot cards and stuff like that. Because I don't know anything about tarot, so it's like that goes way over my head type of thing. But
same mate. I know nothing about tarot, but they are doing a lot of hints to it, aren't they? And there are a lot of rumors that the lady, the woman with the big horns, whose name I've forgotten, is Storm. They're saying that she's going to be the big X of Swords betrayer. Is going to be Storm, but I can't see how that's going to happen, because they're talking about her being Apocalypse's daughter, unless, like Ben said, it's a time shift and it's going to be a future version of Storm. I don't know. or they're going to be redoing these characters later on that are X of Swords characters will then become them. I don't know.
I'm very disappointed because I just feel like it was such a cool premise for the X-Men. This, you know, it was House of X was the most interested I've been in X-Men for you know a while, and I just feel like they've dropped the ball.
Yeah.
But obviously next week
Yeah.
we have got three further parts.
Yeah.
I will
3
say
more
this.
Fortress issues for Ben.
I love Marauders.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a Marauders story that's kind of embedded, not just like they're carrying it on and let's kind of put all the Marauder storylines to one side.
Yeah.
Because I love Marauders. So I'm looking forward to Wolverine, and we'll see.
Marauders has one of the best storylines going on at the moment with Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, because we've got Marauders, as you say. We've got Wolverine, where we're going to find there's apparently a first appearance of his new arch nemesis called Solem, I believe, new character. And then we've got
not Solomon Grundy.
An X Factor. Exactly. No, X Force.
Get out.
Yeah, sorry.
So we got X Force, Wolverine, and Marauders next week. So.
And I love me some X-Force. So to be fair, I could be a lot more positive next week.
Yeah, be a positive.
Yeah. We'll get positive Ben in next week.
Positive Ben. Cool.
Well, hopefully next week we'll also be joined by Comico Dino if he can pop in and replace me. Well, not replace me. He's actually coming in to join us.
No, not replacing anybody next week. We'll just get another couple of get another face in and see if we can mix it up a bit.
Yeah, see what Dino's appreciation is of this, because he's also an ex person, if you like.
Yeah, but it is early days. We've still got 20 more parts to come over the next about 6 weeks or so. So, but will we see Ben beaten into a pulp of just I'm done.
Yeah.
Finish X-Men for Ben.
Well, here's the challenge. Here's the challenge for the event. Yeah. It's to turn me. So we're 2 in, and I'm not loving life. But that's not to say that I can't be converted. You know, these things sometimes can take a turn for the better or worse. But we'll see. I mean, you know, I loved like Avengers versus X-Men, and that got a lot of stick. So, you know, it's taste, isn't it? But for me, this is just too much. I like to reduce things down and make things simple so I understand.
The reason you liked X-Men versus Avengers or Avengers versus X-Men, is it because Colossus becomes a Phoenix Force?
Oh man, that was so cool.
I totally agree, mate. That was one of my favourite issues.
We need Colossus, Phoenix Force, Colossus.
Yeah, let's have Colossus pick up a sword. That'd be great.
Do you know what I would have loved? I would have loved Colossus, Toad, and Quentin Quire. Just the 3 of them, just fighting Apocalypse.
That could happen, though. Quentin Quire, definitely, because aren't they? They're supposed to be cloning him, aren't they? Anyway, that's a completely different, separate story. But so, well, that's it. Does bring us to the end of the X of Swords event review issue or episode 1. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Thank you to Ben for joining us. Ben, do you want to tell everyone what's coming up this week on your channel, if you can?
Oh, yes. So I've just on Thursday and Friday posted a birth month books. So there was 2 of those this week, which is very exciting. April 1972 and April 1979, I think, off the top of my head. So some really good picks there, which, a few mix-ups on the leaderboard. But very exciting. If you tune into my channel this week on Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. GMT, the videos go live. Halloween starts. So I'll be having various kind of chats with horror fans about horror, funnily enough. Not Tom, because he is what we would have called back in the day a wimp.
Yeah, pretty much. At least my mum's not here this time to tell everyone I have nightmares.
Do you know what you got to do? You got to find the comedy in horror. The moment because I never used to like horror, I used to go, oh, the acting's terrible and it's very cheesy. But like the moment I realised, no, actually, I've got to find the comedy in this and the kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff, then that's when my love affair started with it. So please do tune in.
I have seen Scream.
I was going to say Scream is like that is more like a comedy, isn't it?
Scream's a bloody spoof. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Anyway, tune in for lots of creepy fun in October.
Cool.
Awesome.
I think I will probably try.
Can we turn Tom into a horror fan as much as we can turn Ben a fan into Exosword?
No way.
What can
a leopard change its spots?
No, but a crab can change its shell.
Boom!
Ooh, he's on form for a Thursday.
Yeah.
Monday. When's this going out?
Monday.
Monday. We're live.
Live on a Monday. But not so live.
Thank you for having me, though, gents. It's always a pleasure.
No, thank you for coming along, mate.
You two make me smile.
Yeah,
make sure everybody who's watching, make sure you go and drop a sub over on Ben's channel so you don't miss any of that sort of exciting stuff that he's just been saying. Obviously, drop a sub on us as well so you can see all of our regular videos and live streams on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Hit the notification bell, of course, so that you get forewarned when we're going live. And also, just take care, give us a thumbs up. And that's me done. So take care till next time.
Yeah, I'm going to say take care, look after each other, stay safe, stay sexy, and see you.